You're live.
Perfect.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the seventh edition of the Locker Room Chat. I am very grateful to be here with a friend, Aditi Nayar. She is a partner at Ernst & Young, where she leads the financial due diligence service, and she has happily agreed to join the Locker Room Chat. Aditi, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me on this platform. I'm humbled, I'm honored, and I'm looking forward to a fun, fruitful, open, transparent conversation.
Thank you, Aditi. So for the people that are new here, the Locker Room Chat is a conversation series within my thought leadership project called Winning at Value Creation is a lot like winning in sports. And in this conversation, we use the championship cycle that maps the investment cycle to the sports cycle and has 5 stages. So the idea of today will be to walk through Aditi's journey and Aditi's experience using this framework to try to get what we call winning tips that can help some of us perform better or just improve in life. As an overarching framework, the championship cycle, as I mentioned, has the 5 stages. It starts with the game plan, or like how do we think about what we do. The draft day, how do we make it into a professional setup or a good league. The season, the ups, the lows, and the different situations that happen in our work or in the sport. The game day, or like big transitions that happen in our life. And of course, hopefully after we do all these things, we have a legacy that outlives us. So with this, let's start with the beginning. Aditi, who is Aditi? Where does she come from? And how did she find financial due diligence?
Thank you. So to take it back to the beginning, born and raised in Nairobi, I did leave the country briefly to do my undergraduate in finance and accounting. So I had that base knowledge already. Returned to Nairobi, and my first stint was a very interesting experience. I worked for a private group by the name Dry Associates. And my role there was twofold. So I learnt about placing what we call commercial paper in this market. It's private placement of short-term money. I then moved on to develop what they have as now a private wealth department. And 3 years later into my career, I came to the acknowledgement that I was 24 years old and I needed to build on my technical skills. This is when EY was first starting a transactions department in the region. And through a publication, the Daily Nation, our dailies, there was an advert, and I started my career 14 years ago with EY in Nairobi doing what we call transaction advisory services. At the time, and the reason I share this is I wanted kind of bring in the maturity or the development of the market. We were a team of 5. And I remember when we started, we couldn't focus on a particular service because we were worried that we wouldn't be able to build repetitiveness or expertise in these. We were worried about not being sector focused, and the risk being sector focused in such a market is you might just do one transaction in 5 years. And so we were a sector agnostic team. We were a service agnostic team. And that's how we started. One diligence built into the second diligence. And 14 years later, I'm now leading strategy and transactions across East Africa. So we cover Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, DRC, and Rwanda. We now have physical team presence in Tanzania and in Uganda. That would be a team of 5. And in Nairobi, we now are a team of 21, all the way from analysts to the leadership. So that's a little bit of my journey.
And within the journey and like choosing and specializing, because like now you lead the whole department, but you're known in the market for your financial due diligence expertise. So I think my opinion is that you really built a name and a niche around the financial due diligence, and then that's what helped you to grow into the partnership and to build a team. Can you walk us a bit through of that, finding that niche and like then making it through the ranks and in an organization that's also nascent, a bit of yes, EY is a big name globally, but the market here is in that process of developing. Can you walk us through a bit that journey of finding the niche, finding the passion? You mentioned structuring your technical knowledge and growing through it. A bit of that journey, please.
So, to be very honest with you, it's been learning through experience. And I think when I look back at my journey, I actually really enjoy financial diligences. I enjoyed understanding what is the purpose of it. And when I step back and take a look at it, there are twofold purposes of it. You can use it to understand what are the drivers of a business. And I think just an inherent passion for understanding different sectors, how different businesses operate, have always been part of me. And so once you're doing a diligence, you need to understand what are the key drivers of this business to understand how are you going to create value going forward. So that's one stream. The other very exciting stream is we've already got a deal on the table, but there are some metrics that are yet to be negotiated and finalized. And just helping to build the argument for either buyer or seller to support some negotiation discussions has been something that I thrive on. Like you say, it's very sports oriented and it's a lot of preparation to building towards negotiation day. And how do you get alignment as a team? We look at the team as the client being part of us. How do we prepare for those negotiations? How do we present those negotiations? And I think just the passion of being in that aggressive negotiation environment and my deep interest to seeing how these negotiations would pan out is a reason why I think we've built the skill of being good diligence providers. I have to say, being part of a global network such as EY is very valuable. We've got extensive reach to our colleagues in more mature markets, and we have leveraged their support in our learning cycle. So I do remember our first few diligences were not even reviewed by our local teams. We had these reviewed by our teams in London and more mature markets to help upskill our knowledge and build the skill set required to do this. So I think summarizing all is an interest in businesses and how they are successful, number one, having a passion for learning that. And I think what excites me is we get to work on different sectors. So now I don't say I'm a sector expert right now, but I can definitely tell you what is a successful commercial bank doing, what is a successful manufacturer looking at. And just that interest is a key to being successful. Be open to learning, be humble enough to be open to different perspectives, and also leveraging on your team for insights is one of the key insights that I can look at.
Thanks, Aditi. So I would like to take like one step back also on your personal journey with fitness, right?
Yes.
You
which you were part of at the very beginning.
Yes. 10 years ago.
Yes, I think you introduced me to the space. Yeah.
So thinking about that sports angle and the fitness, and what we try to do here also is to explain in very simple terms what this means. So I'm taking from you that in the professional life a bit you had the exposure, the passion, the learning by doing, actually the repetition and getting constant feedback from people that had gone through the journey before, and being humble enough to take those steps. Can you find some similarities on your fitness journey? Because I know it's tough to start something new when you are already like a grown up. How did that span out?
So 100%. So I've been going to a gym actively. When I look back, and for full transparency, I think for the last 20 years. However, when I met Maria, she introduced me to a different kind of training, and this was more boutique class-based training. This journey started about 10 years ago. And I think what that did is, yes, I would go to a gym, but being in a class-based space where you had presence of other gym goers motivate and inspire you was something that made it a little bit more fun. And the fun experience made it a little bit more consistent. I think what I learned from Maria the most is measuring or having a goal. My first 10 years of the gym was spent just going in and lifting things without really tracking where my progress was. And I think what I took out of Maria was, you need to know how much you're lifting, how frequency you're doing it. Are you improving in terms of strength? Are you staying at the same level? And those were metrics that were totally new to me 10 years ago. Where I am right now from that 10 years later is I actively do strength training twice a week. I have a day dedicated to legs, a day dedicated to upper body. This wasn't me 10 years ago. I now track what we call your personal best, and I'm trying to always outdo that personal best in a certain time limit. So it's become a journey with goals. Whereas before I was doing it more as an activity, and now it's more of a goal-oriented journey where I'm trying to achieve something. I think Maria also inspired me to take some bit of combat sport on. So 2 years ago, I did start a little bit of Muay Thai to help me with that. I currently do that once a week still to blend into the whole thing. So yeah, it's been an incredible journey. And I think the takeaway is you always need to have a vision that you're working towards. Otherwise, you lose meaning in a journey.
And I think this is a very nice connection with the vision and the journey, and you making it. So like we shared a lot of that vision within a professional services firm of like, how do you become a partner? How do you enter into the leadership of the firm? And how do you translate all that you have learned into actually making it? And you were admitted into the partnership and now leading the whole team. Walk us through a bit through that process of having that goal, that journey, and also like all the insecurities that come around it until you finally sort of prove yourself or enjoy the journey. And then once you make it, it's not the end. There is also a whole lot of things that come after. And that's the season.
At the season, 100% aligned on that. And when you see on paper, it's very different to when you see the career journey in practice. I don't think paper does justice to what you experience as you go through each of these phases. So when I look back, when you're at a senior level, I think that's the real time you need to spend, because you're not going to have that availability of time to build your technical skills. And those technical skills change as we progress in our careers. So when I started 13 years ago, it was fundamental that you just have your technical skills based on diligence. 10 years later, that's no longer sufficient for an associate. There's analytics, there's artificial intelligence, there's visualization tools. And that's the time where I feel you have the number one time to upskill your technical skills, but you also are a little bit more open to learning given your day-to-day. And so I think when I look at the whole journey, a lot of your time spent during a senior role or a consultant role needs to be getting those technical skills in your skin, and developing them, that they're your second nature or even your first nature. As you progress, you need to become a little bit more as a trusted advisor. And when I say a trusted advisor, I should be able to be comfortable enough to go into a client's office and deliver real valuable conversations about what the risks are, what they mean in terms of breaking it down day to day to your client and delivering those insights. There's no point giving a diligence if you're not able to explain what that means for them. So building that trust, giving that advice is what I feel you transition from a consultant to a manager role. And I won't go through the whole hierarchy, but after manager, you get into what I would say a leadership role. And that's where the real change comes. I think that's been my hardest transition if I look at the entire career trajectory. And why I say that's the hardest change is now you have to put a hat of being a business owner. And that's the hardest transition I've had to make, because not only are you responsible for being a trusted business advisor, but you're also running your own business. And when you're running your own business, you have commercial risks. You have financial risks. You have talent risks. And managing that on a day-to-day business alongside ensuring you're still a trusted advisor was the hardest transition. I still say 1.5 years, I haven't mastered it completely, but I am developing learnings of how do you master this. And I think in my first 1.5 years, I have to say, you need to build a good team. And the reason why you need to build a good team is to ensure you're still being able to be a trusted business advisor, but have the power to delegate some of your responsibilities to then allow you to focus on driving your business. And my mindset now is, I think I've dealt with how to deal with people, upskill the team. I've dealt with the financial risks and the operational risks, but I still haven't had time to look forward and say, what is the strategy for us as a team forward looking? And I think it's taken me 1.5 years to get comfortable here, but I'm at the place now where I'm thinking bigger picture and growth, and where is this going to come from?
Great. So, I mean, the similarities that come also with sports are amazing, because for any sport, I think at the beginning you need a lot of fundamentals, drilling, making some reactions or some moves second to nature, and then you can start adding complexity, competition, and evolving within the sport. And at elite level, all those fundamentals are just second to nature, and you start thinking about more the strategy, how to move the team, or how do you position yourself. So that is great. So this brings us, okay, so Aditi is born and raised in Nairobi, finds a passion for financials, loves learning about businesses, gets into it, starts with Dry Associates, moves to EY, grows through EY, makes it partner. In through all this process, there is a whole season of things happening. And when we compare this with investing, is when you hold an investment, there are a lot of things that need to happen for you to create value. I would like to listen from you some hints, or like some good stories of your season, some highs, some lows, so unexpected things. But before we do that, I think for the people that may be joining here that are not familiar with exactly the financial due diligence space, if you could give us a high level overview of like what does it mean, and then break down some studies or like some cases of things that you have seen that could help illustrate some of your season challenges.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So financial diligence, just for a basic overview, and I like to use this example. You've secured to buy a vehicle, and you want to send in a mechanic to look at the vehicle before you actually sign the paperwork. So you send in diligence providers. Diligence providers can look at various aspects of a business. You can look at it operationally, you can look at it commercially, you can look at it financially, from a tax perspective and legal perspective. When I started 15 years ago in the market, the must-have were financial, tax, and legal. As the market matures and we're getting more refined investors with certain objectives in the value creation and exit process, we are seeing traction in the commercial space, operational, and some of these businesses require a technical view. What is the end objective of the diligence? The end objective of the diligence is to give the client, either the buyer or the seller, what are the risks involved with this purchase? Can these risks be resolved as at a negotiation aspect? If not, how can these risks be addressed to protect the respective buyer or client? And then what are the opportunities once this transaction is closed in taking this to what we would say create some value before we exit? So that's the summarized version of what a financial diligence is. Good examples or good highlights, and I'll go into a little bit of detail. So I think a market leading transaction in this particular market was when ECP took Java to be sold. That was the first private equity in East Africa who adopted a bid process in this market. I think at that time they did achieve the highest valuation multiple, and they had run a VDD process where you get a diligence from the seller side to say the story of the business and help give the valuation story to it. Out of this, there were several adjustments to EBITDA that were part of this. And given it was a bid process, you had all the teams in Nairobi working for respective bidders looking at this particular transaction. And when I take a step away and 5 years later, there was one adjustment that everyone had a different view on. And this was the adjustment for the Java at the airport, which went through a fire and then was relocated. And the question was, would this Java return to normal EBITDA, the particular one? And different bidders had different viewpoints and different ways of analyzing it. In the end, I think the view you adopted on that particular adjustment was based on your strategy of that business going forward. And so that was a very interesting one. I think it was a market-leading transaction. And we've seen vendor due diligences pick up in this market ever since. There's so much value from doing that diligence upfront. It streamlines the process, it streamlines negotiation, it can result in a higher valuation multiple. And so that was one of the most interesting ones I had.
So maybe for the people that are not that familiar also with what does this adjusted EBITDA means and the implications it has, right? Because when we do the valuation for the most traditional thing is you find the EBITDA, you find a multiple. There are various market multiples. You choose one, negotiate on that, and then you negotiate on the EBITDA. And that EBITDA, the adjusted one, is what you consider to be a stable EBITDA in the future. So if it goes up or down, the whole transaction value changes. So it's a very contagious point. But I want to ask you sort of two things of how do you think about that adjusted EBITDA in comparison to sports, right? If we look at that adjusted EBITDA at a period in time, is how do we make this sustainable? How do we make this consistent? What are the key things that you look at when making those assumptions or on those recommendations in finding something that can be sustainable, consistent in a business? And if you can put it in a simple way for people to understand in a sports comparison.
So I think if I was to break EBITDA in the most basic way, it would be the cash profit a business can generate from its core operations. So all external influences have to be removed and it should be bearing a cash result. If you tell me to turn that into a sports metric, I would say that would be, and sports is, why it's so comparable to sports is you always have a target that you're measuring it against. And so I'd say whatever sport it is, it could be golf where you've got your handicap, or it could be paddle where you've got your leveling. I would say it would be a recurring achievement of that target under normal circumstances. So under your normal parameters of sleep, stress, etc., that is the target handicap or score or paddle ranking that you have consistently been able to maintain over a recent defined period. In sports, I'd say the recent defined period is a bit of a gray area. You can't be consistent for that. The idea is to always improve on that. And that's the same with businesses. So your idea is to grow EBITDA. EBITDA growth is traditionally looked at over a 3 to 5 year period. I think that's a little bit longer when you compare it to the sports narrative. So that's the only differential I'd look at it between sports and businesses.
And then, of course, this consistency plays a big role in value and what we actually achieve. So both for ourselves or whoever is doing a sport, that consistency at the end derives in the value that you get out. And in a business, when you're selling and going through the process, of course, that consistency and that sustainability in the future is what gets you at the end your adjusted EBITDA that allows you to have these values. So thanks for sharing that. And then any other stories?
So those are the highs. The lows have been, and just to share some of the experiences, lows. So I still recollect when I was in my learning stages at a senior level, there was a particular transaction on which we worked on for a year. And the frustration related to repetitiveness of trying to build analysis, the high pressure environment. When I look at it in the moment, you think they're your lows, but a few years later, when you reflect in it, those could actually be your high moments. So like in sports, the feeling or the endurance of when you're actually in it might be your low in that minute, but when you reflect on the journey, those are your highs that push you higher. So I just wanted to share some of those. I think just being very humble that I can practice across East Africa has also been a great learning. As much as we're one region, there are different parameters to understanding how businesses in Tanzania, Ethiopia operate vis-a-vis Nairobi, Kenya. And just understanding that has been a bit of a humbling experience, given my initial years were primarily in Nairobi. I've had to be humbled to learn different jurisdictions, different ways of operating across the East Africa region.
Great. So again, putting this back into our championship cycle, we have gone through our game plan, our draft day, the season in building the team, building the practice. We have, of course, the game day of these very important things that have happened, both or personally or transaction wise. What are your game days?
So strategy, where do I want to be?
No, what were like bigger I'm sorry, we had an emerging market problem. The power went off, so we got disconnected from the internet. So apologies for that. So then coming back a bit to where we were, we had gone through the game plan, the draft day, the season, and now we want to discuss some of these game day or like big transitions in your career that then will lead us into the final stage, that is your legacy or your strategy for the future. So maybe a bit on game day or big things that have happened to you, can be both personally or professionally, that you want to share with people as winning tips.
I think the first thing is adulting in a career perspective. I think the realization that now I'm leading a team, I'm responsible for the development of the team, the growth of the team is one of the big mindset changes that I've had to make. I think with the leadership, it's more about mindset. And I think a lot of that has been preparation, understanding people, understanding objectives for what they have. So when I look at the entire trajectory, again, and it might sound repetitive, but technical skills, keeping up to date with that. Even though you're a leader, I think you do need to understand the basics of the new skills that have been introduced in the market. So a bit of the game changer things are analytics, AI, how am I embedding these? The thought process is not so much on now, how am I upskilling myself? The basic training's being done, but how am I embedding this or empowering my teams to use this in delivery is part of the preparation work that we are doing in preparing into our legacy. So it's taking a step back from the engagement delivery and trying to put myself now on the customer or the client's feet and saying, how can I improve their overall experience, is a little bit of the preparation work that has gone through. So it's operational, it's client facing, and when I say operational, you also need to ensure your financial and operation metrics are in place. So I'd have to say it's a lot of preparation work that is going on right now.
Great. And then also I think game day for you, I don't know, because I know you personally, was when you became a director before becoming a partner. There's a whole process behind that of like interviewing you, receiving a call confirming that you have become a director. And I know like partnership sometimes is the ultimate goal, but I think that directorship that they give in these professional services firms is like a stage. Well, they're testing you and they say, okay, we have like a year or two to decide whether this person is actually admitted or not. But it's also a whole big step to go through that. And it was a few years back, but I think all that also from like a personal perspective for anyone like watching that is going through that journey, can you share a bit of the preparation, the anxiety, the doubts, and then how you faced it? And then I think in your career it's very nice that you had embraced each challenge as they come, and you sorted out doing it. But I just think that particular moment carried a lot of game day nerves.
Yes.
So maybe just picking what I know about you to share a bit of that experience with anyone that's going through a big moment in their careers.
You're absolutely right, because if I look at my career trajectory, the directorship was the only one I celebrated. And that just shows the quantum or the excitement that it came with. So obviously when it came, super excited, very humbled that people believed in you to give you that chance. And like you rightly mentioned, it's a chance to prove yourself. And it's a timely chance with a goal attached to it. And I think so the first initial reaction is excitement, humility. As anyone, doubtful in your sense of achievement. Will I be able? Will I not be able? Is a question that's always lurking in your mind. And how do I ensure I achieve this? So if I can break it down, excitement, celebration, and then there is that doubtfulness. But I think what comes with this is also speaking to people. And I was lucky enough that I had access to the EY facilities where you're taken to certain places to deliberate with like-minded people, but also beyond EY, speaking to industry professionals, speaking to yourself, sharing ideas, sharing your concerns, sharing your fears is also very, very important. I have, I wouldn't say a mentor, but I do have within the industry somebody that has grown the ranks with me. And we've always been open enough to share with each other what are our challenges, and where are we trying to go. And I think that has been an important way of helping us get across this. So I'd be saying when you get into that directorship role, it's only natural to be fearful. It's only natural to be doubtful. But the biggest success would be leverage on the people around you. It could be friends, it could be clients, it could be family. And when I say leverage, it's a give and take. Be open to understanding what their challenges are, what your challenges are, and try and uplift each other. And I think that's been a really nice transition point at the directorship stage.
Thanks, Aditi. And then now, looking into what is your strategy going forward? What do you want to leave behind? What will be your legacy? What do you want to leave behind?
I know this may not resonate with many in the audience, but it's a personal ambition. I do want to have the best diligence team across the continent. And to do that, there are lots of asks that I need to go through. But that's a personal passion for myself. It's a personal ambition that I've given myself. And when I define best, I'm defining best in terms of different parameters. So for me, best is revenue. I need to have the largest revenue share. Best is size. I need to have the largest team in terms of numbers. Best for me is the best individuals. In terms of quality, I need to have the most highly trained individuals as part of my team. And not only as part of my team, I should be able to retain them and offer them a career journey that allows them to continue to grow this team. That's the legacy that I want to leave. I know it might not resonate with a lot of people, but it's a reflection of embedding 15 years of your life in being a diligence provider. It becomes a natural inhibition within yourselves to leave that legacy. Yeah.
Yeah, we're back. Sorry, again, technical issue. Sorry, Aditi.
I just wanted to thank Maria. I think it's an excellent platform that you've created. Thank you for having me on it. Reflecting back from when we started 10 years ago, I think this is a very natural reflection of our relationship, which started Jim professionally and how we've always collaborated. And I'm glad that we got an opportunity to bring this to a wider audience. But I just want to say this is an honor, and it's been a natural reflection of our journey for the last 10 years. So thank you.
No, thank you, Aditi. And just as a disclaimer, there she used to do the financial, I used to do the commercial. So her adjusted EBITDA and her adjusted everything was the base for the next projections and for the future. So So it's been a very nice working relationship as well.
Likewise, and I've thoroughly enjoyed bringing commercial onto financial, which wasn't there many years ago. And I think that partnership is something which will hopefully change the landscape of doing deals going forward.
Super, thank you.
Thank
you, Aditi.
you.
And thanks everyone that joined. Apologies for the power outrage, but we managed somehow. And hope everyone has a great rest of the day. I'll write an article about Aditi and the winning tips. Be published in my newsletter in the next 2 to 4 weeks. And thank you everyone that joined. Take care.
Happy weekend, guys.